I spent the first part of my second essay explaining how the entire system of the Electoral College is a problem. Because of the two-party system, voters aren't able to choose the candidate they do want. They end up voting against the candidate they don't want. My solution to that is instant runoff voting. It's already being used in Minneapolis and San Francisco, according to Matt Gehring from the Minneapolis House of Representatives, and I think that it would be a good solution to the problem at hand. Runoff voting creates a system where voters can vote for a third party candidate and are not held to the constraints set by their declared party in a presidential election. People in favor of the two party system in an election believe two main things. One, third party candidates are a waste of a vote. In an election with the current standards, this is true. Right now, all that third party voting does is take away votes from the candidate you prefer more. However, in an instant runoff system, this could be avoided. They also believe that if there was more than two parties, then most people would be misrepresented. This is also true in a current election. In the current system, if an election were a 32-32-36 split, 64% of people would be misrepresented by the candidate that's elected. In the following segment, I'm going to use a video to explain instant runoff voting and how it can completely solve both of these problems and have a way better representation of the American public as a whole.
Okay, so here we have instant runoff voting. Now to set the stage a little bit, imagine we have our voter, Jake, and Jake is going to vote in the 2024 presidential election. Our first candidate is named Creed Bratton, and he's a little bit creepy, but he's not the best, but Jake doesn't mind him. And our second candidate is Robert California. Now, Robert California is very creepy. He doesn't like him at all. He doesn't like anything about him. He's just weird. They're both really not great, but if Jake had to pick one, he would choose Creed over Robert. We also have a couple third-party candidates. We have Andy, who he's not great, but he gets the job done, Andy Bernard. We have Gabe Lewis over here, who's absolutely terrible. We're going to put him in the corner because we don't like to think about Gabe. And then we have Dwight. Dwight is Jake's ideal candidate. He likes him better than any other candidate. He thinks he would be perfect for president. Now, in a normal presidential election, Jake would either have to vote for Creed or Robert to have pretty much any effect on the election. If Jake votes for Dwight, though, what he is doing is not voting for Dwight. He's taking votes away from Creed and giving them to Robert. Say that Creed has 50% of the vote and Robert has 50% of the vote. Well, if Jake votes for Creed, that'll keep Creed at 50% of the vote. But let's say Jake votes for Dwight. Well, if Jake votes for Dwight, Creed only has 49% of the vote. And now Robert has 50% of the vote. And there's no way Dwight's going to win. So Jake, if he doesn't want Robert to be elected, has to vote for Creed. Now, as I discussed earlier, simply choosing between two candidates, neither of which Jake likes, isn't how a country should run. If I don't like either of the candidates, I shouldn't be forced to have to vote for one of them to have any effect on the election. In instant runoff voting, we're taking account every one of the candidates. And how we do that is by making a ranking system. So Jake wants Dwight to be number one. He's his favorite candidate. He likes Dwight. So he's going to put him at number one. Now, Jake also understands that Creed and Robert are the most popular. So if he wants one of these two to win, he should put Creed at number two, and he should put Robert way down. That not only lets him represent his support for Dwight, but he also can support Creed and not support Robert. And for the other third-party candidates, for Andy and Gabe, well, Andy's okay, so he can put him in the middle of the pack. And for Gabe, that says Gab. And for Gabe, he can put him all the way at the bottom because he's absolutely terrible. He doesn't want him at all. So this way, when he wants to show support for a third-party candidate, he can show his support, keep Creed in the running, show his dissupport for the ones he doesn't like, and put the okay one in the middle. Come election time with instant runoff voting, Jake's support for Dwight wouldn't be instantaneous. By ranking him at number one, he would show his support for him, but he would also put Creed in the running and put Robert at the bottom. This way, the three candidates who are in the running are Creed, Dwight, and Robert. Well, not everybody knows about instant runoff voting right away. So we'll say that Dwight loses by a decent amount, and Creed and Robert are left standing. Well, he knew Dwight was going to lose. He just wanted to show his support for him. That's why he put him at number 1. But that's also why he put Creed at number 2. So in the 2024 election, Creed wins. Well, now that we've heard about this, there's some added interest in these third parties. People start going, okay, third party candidates sound okay. If I can put them at number 1 and not have to worry about the candidate I really don't like coming in first, well, I can still vote for third party candidates. So in the 2028 election, people in the running are all 3 of these. And it's a 3-way split. But because people have finally figured out that you can really show interest in a third-party candidate and it'll have an effect in the election without worrying about electing Robert, Dwight could win. And in the 2028 election, Dwight wins. So this way, when you have multiple candidates and people can freely express their support for whichever candidate they want, you can have a much more fair system, which brings to the table a lot more people's opinions and values. And Jake can vote for whoever he wants and doesn't have to worry about supporting Robert by voting for Dwight.
So we had a little change of scenery because people started making dinner right next to me and it wasn't really working. But instant runoff voting basically solves the problem of having a bunch of different parties at one time. So I can vote for whoever I want to and not have to worry about electing somebody that I don't. We can connect this back to the Electoral College easily because we talked earlier about the corruption caused in the Electoral College by the two-party system. So if we don't have that necessity for a two-party system, we can really fix the Electoral College and have it work for the people instead of for the parties. Thank you.